Welcome back. Social media platforms can provide its users with amazing benefits, connections with friends and family, and the ability to share fun and interesting content and access a vast array of knowledge and information. But because we just can't seem to ever have nice things, some individuals and groups have abused these platforms using big tech to create disinformation and spread misinformation and hate, for that matter. Tech giants like Facebook and Twitter, Amazon and Google have faced a host of scrutiny in recent years for this very problem. They have far too often just shrugged their shoulders and turned a blind eye to abuse and harassment hurled at people of color and have helped to spread misinformation and disinformation online. The lack of government regulation has put Black and brown communities in harm's way, has undermined our elections, and so much more. Which begs the question, could breaking up big tech companies and tougher federal regulation impact racial justice? Rashad Robinson is here to help answer that question and unpack all the things. He is the president of Color of Change, a leading racial justice organization driven by the will to build power for Black communities. Rashad, welcome back to Amplified. You just testified before Congress about this very issue. Kind of a huge deal. At one point, you said, quote, "Big tech's control over environments of social connection is also dangerous. When some people are able to freely enjoy the opportunity for social connection in an online environment, but other people are driven out of it, that's discrimination, especially when the difference in people's experience is correlated with the difference in their race or gender." I thought that was a really powerful statement. Could you break that down for us and talk to us about how big tech algorithms and platform setups discriminate against groups traditionally disadvantaged?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. And this discussion is so incredibly important. The technology that has so much potential to bring us into the future is dragging us into the past. And it's not an unfortunate accident. It's not like a car accident where it kind of just happens. It's actually manufactured through a whole set of choices. Companies like, Facebook, Google, Amazon have sort of near total control over the three areas of online life. So, online connections, our ability to connect, online commerce, and online content. And having total control means that they have set a whole set of rules that really prioritize their growth and their profit over safety, integrity, and security. And they do it because there's actually a lack of rules in place that actually hold them accountable. So, companies that are self-regulated are, in essence, unregulated companies. And that's what we have with these companies, the ability to set their own standards, to decide what choices they will make day to day, and to decide when they will disclose things to regulators, when they will adhere to civil rights law, or when they will decide that civil rights law doesn't actually impact them and they don't adhere to civil rights law. And that's essentially what got me and my organization to Congress. That's what's really driven our work over the last several years, is a desire to not end our ability to engage online, but our desire to make sure that corporations are held accountable. The same way that we all get into vehicles each and every day and we rely on those vehicles being safe, it's not because of the benevolence of the auto industry. It's because we have infrastructure and rules in this country that hold the auto industry accountable to make sure our seatbelts are safe, that our cars work. The same way that we can go into a supermarket and buy meat and we know that it's met certain standards. Right now, technology doesn't actually have that, and we need 21st century infrastructure for 21st century problems.
I always love that analogy that you used there about the seatbelt. Yeah, because not a big deal anymore. We don't even think of it as a big deal. And that's so much of what Color of Change is doing with all of your petitions. You're fighting for regulation, for federal action. I would love it if you could tell folks how they can get engaged. Tell us about the petitions that you currently have out there and how people can support.
So a couple of things. You can go to our work at beyondthestatement.com. Beyondthestatement.com was actually a campaign that we built right after the murder of George Floyd, as corporations were, and many in Silicon Valley were actually making deep statements about Black Lives Mattering, but while doing all sorts of practices that were putting us in harm's way. And so we really built this out. And on there's a whole framework for the technology, for tech. Right now, there's a set of legislation in front of Congress that we are sort of pushing for, and that was the other reason why I was in front of Congress, was to sort of advance and push for a set of 4 bills before the House Energy and Commerce Committee that's going to deal with the immunity that tech platforms currently have. The fact of the matter is these platforms continue to argue and have been able to argue successfully that they don't actually have to adhere to civil rights law. And, you know, as an organization that works every single day to raise the voices of Black people, we care deeply about the First Amendment, and we need the First Amendment to raise our voices. But in essence, these platforms are actually trying to get around accountability for things like paid advertisement, for things like product designs that actually recommend who you should follow, recommend you to groups, you know, so leading people down the road to white nationalists, leading people down sort of algorithmic roads that actually move different content that gets amplified and other content that gets suppressed. The fact of the matter is that these platforms can do it because they think that they don't have immunity, because our laws have not actually caught up to the products. And we need infrastructure that will allow us to do it. But that alone won't do it. And you talked about breaking up big tech in the beginning. And antitrust laws and antitrust rules are absolutely critical to racial justice and civil rights, ensuring that companies are not so big that they are unaccountable. And if we think about the history in this country, whether it was Standard Oil and whether it was other companies that got far too big, and in getting too big created all sorts of challenges, we have to deal with the monopolistic power of these companies and ensure that they just don't get to set their own rules, hold their own sort of deep levels of power without accountability. Facebook has over 70% of the messenger market. They have more than 3 billion users, more followers than Christianity. Wow. In so many ways, if we're not looking at ways in which these outsized companies have created all sorts of damages and all sorts of challenges, then we're not going to get to the fundamental question about how do we ensure equity and fairness in our society.
You know, Rashad, I want to actually just kind of break this down a little bit and get to a granular example to help people understand how nefarious these practices are. Because this isn't just simply a matter of, oh, it's a company doing its thing and it happens to be big. It is absolutely a civil rights issue. And, you know, in 2020 general election, totally revealed how terrifying it is to have misinformation spreading around on social media platforms. And among some of the folks who fall victim to this are Latinos and Spanish speakers. There's a piece in the LA Times that pointed out that sometimes the misinformation mirrored what the rest of the country was seeing, and at other times it actually leaned into more Latino-specific concerns, such as comparing candidate Joe Biden to Latin American dictators or claiming that Black Lives Matter activists were using brujeria. There were lies floating around about BLM activists being witches, which is crazy and incredible. And what's so interesting about all of this is that it noted that, well, 2 things interest me. One is the pitting of Black people against Latinos, right? But it also noted that Facebook employees flagged that Latinos were being targeted before the election. And so I'm just wondering, I mean, we know that inside Facebook employees, for example, in this instance, but people know at these companies the harm they're doing, right? Or the harm that they're propagating and all the nefarious things that are going down. And so I wonder what's taking so long to really get to the heart of this issue and the real world consequences of it, because it's not like we can pretend that these are good actors that, you know, didn't know that bad things could happen.
Well, this gets back to that question of product design and incentive structure, right? Right back to all of the other products that become safe at some point because of regulation and accountability, right? You know, you have to kind of recognize that corporations are going to maximize their bottom line. And because there is not sufficient accountability, these companies every single day are trading off whether or not they're going to make us safer or whether or not they're going to make more money. And for some of us, we're less powerful in the world. We're less valuable in the world. The folks in Silicon famously do not hire Latinos and Black people, right? So we can't expect people that don't hire us to actually create products to keep us safe or to be responsible for keeping us safe. When it comes to these questions, right? So it's not just that question around sort of whether or not this platform was dealing with the disinformation. 87% of the sort of content moderation is English at Facebook, right? And so that means 13% is all other languages worldwide. And so when you look at just the resources they're putting behind actually dealing with content moderation, you can get at why there are so many vulnerabilities. But when Facebook even puts policies in place, how those policies get enforced and who they get enforced on is actually really important. A recent Washington Post story that I was read into based off of some leaked documents from Facebook employees showed that in terms of sort of racist, people being held accountable for racist and violent content, Black people were actually being held accountable at a higher rate for the same level of infraction as white people. So in fact, the sort of ways in which Black people deal with being targeted for drug use, even though we use drugs at the same rate as white people, was happening inside of Facebook. This internal research was flagged. It was brought up the ladder, and Facebook decided to not do anything about it, not because they couldn't do anything about it, but because they felt like it might upset the conservatives who they were trying to avoid regulation from. And so the question is that these questions constantly become political because there's not a real baseline, not a policy incentive, not an accountability structure that actually forces this company to do the right thing. And in that case, Congress has to be called on, the White House has to be called on to implement policies and rules that actually hold these companies in place. And so my time in co-chairing the Aspen Commission's Institute, the Aspen Institute's Commission on Information Disorder, we recently released a set of findings. And those findings all need to be taken together to really push to deal with the harms, to spur more transparency from these platforms so we have more visibility in terms of how the algorithms are operating and how they are actually either incentivized or disincentivizing so many things in our culture. And then the sort of dealing with the sort of policy, the product design, all the ways in which product design and incentive structures, business models of these companies is actually leading us down this road. And finally, Aisha, it's just entirely important that none of this happens without leadership. Leadership in government is critically needed across agencies and across Congress and across White House. And so that is where your viewers come in, because we will always lose in the back rooms if people are not lined up at the front door. And that's why we need people raising their voices to their elected officials, because leadership is desperately needed in order for us to move forward and solve these problems.
All right, y'all heard it here. Rashad Robinson is telling us that Black people are going to Facebook jail, just like Black people are disproportionately going to jail out in the world. So we need to line up and figure out what we're going to do about all of this. Rashad Robinson, thank you so much for talking to us about how we're going to hold big tech accountable. Always great having you on here, and appreciate you being with us on Amplified.